unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
Yo, what's up, everyone? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. I'm here with my co-host, Ian Gibson. How are you, Ian?
I'm doing really good.
Nice. Okay, so let's get into this because we're wearing our green. It used to be Wear Your Green Wednesday, but I don't know what happened to that. Yeah. I have not seen that in a little while for USF fans. Whatever. I mean, social media trends come and go. But I do like wearing the green this week because USF has a big game against the Mean Green, North Texas. And Ian, you're going to be there. So give us a little info about what you're doing this weekend.
Yeah, so this weekend it's going to be a Texas trip. We go in on Friday, and then obviously we'll be hitting the USF North Texas game, which this game has massive implications in not only the American Conference, but now the entire landscape of the Group of Five, because it looks like whoever's going to win the American is going to be in the driver's seat to get into the playoff. And then after that, we will be attending the Red River Shootout, Texas and Oklahoma, which, regardless of what it is, who's on the other side or how the records are, it's one of the best rivalries in all of college football and all of sports. We'll talk about it with the possibility of Mateer coming back after the surgery and possibly playing, and how, despite being unranked, Texas is technically still favored, but I think that has something to do with the Mateer injury. But super excited for this weekend. I get to see one of the biggest games for USF this season. And then right after, one of the biggest rivalries. We did also consider, because Florida is in College Station also this week, so there was a possibility, but it would not have, from Dallas to College Station, by the time that game would have started, no shot. I don't know if I believe Florida and Texas A&M is a night game at 7, but by the time we were done at the Cotton Bowl, there was going to be no shot. So potential triple header at Texas, but it's really the state of football this week.
Yeah, we used to do those back in the day. We called them Yay Sports Days. Yeah. And, we would go one of them we did a Bucks game, and then the Bucks game would get over at 4, and then there would be a Lightning game on at 6, 7 o'clock, downtown. And so we would just haul over to downtown Tampa and then go to the Lightning game. I did a couple where I would go when I was working at USF. I would go to the game. It was a USF Syracuse game. And then later that night, Florida was playing LSU. So I drove up to Gainesville and went to the game with my cousin back in the day. And I think that was that game where LSU had that the kicker, he did the throw behind him. You remember that?
That would have been 2010.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's exactly when I was working at USF. And that was an infuriating game to be at.
Oh yeah.
I think that's the last Florida LSU game I've been to. So I've been to I think a total of 3 of those games. And the only one that was good was the year that Florida won the national championship in 2008. The other 2 were just terrible. It was that game. And then I went to the one you won't remember this one because you were too young, but in 2002, I believe. It was 2002. No, 2002 or 2003. No, it was 2002. 2002 because Rex Grossman was still playing, and I don't know, they just looked like crap that game, and it was kind of a beat down by LSU. But let's get into it because we're a little bit off track here talking about Yay Sports Days. But let's get into the USF North Texas game. I want to hear your thoughts, and then I'll give mine after you break it down a little bit.
Yeah, this is clearly, like I mentioned, a huge heavyweight fight going on here. North Texas is off to their best start in decades. Obviously, they're undefeated, 5-0, and despite what how close these games have been, especially the Army game that took them into overtime, undefeated's undefeated, and it's a very good start for North Texas. This is clearly going to be the toughest team they play. And for me, like I mentioned last week for USF, it's all about consistency and staying on schedule. I mentioned how in the middle part of the game they had a fantastic first quarter against Charlotte. And then second, third, beginning third quarter, you could kind of tell they took their foot off the gas pedal and they were kind of lackadaisical. You cannot do that with North Texas because they are going to be coming at you with everything they got because they know how big this game is. They canceled classes because of it.
Yeah.
So obviously, this is a huge game for North Texas and USF needs to maintain how good we know they can be. Obviously, the best example will probably be, especially defensively, the Boise State game, where the defense is going to have to do their best because Messmaker has been really good in the backfield at quarterback. He has 11 touchdowns, I think, already on the year, and I think he only thrown like 50 incompletions out of over 100. I saw some note about that. So incredibly accurate, runs kind of a West Coast style offense, very high percentage passing. So it's going to be up to the defense, especially the linebackers, to try to get in the backfield, disrupt those passing lanes. And this is where the secondary is going to, get tested again. They've looked good, but, they're going to have to get on these wide receivers. Guys like Coleman for North Texas. He's doesn't have a touchdown yet, but he is the leading receiver in yardage. For USF offensively, obviously it's going to live and die off Byron Brown, but the running game also needs to give him more support. Obviously, Norton's not going to be playing with the injury, but the other guys are going to have to not make those read option plays so predictable where Byram is going to be running, and also those RPO plays, when USF goes for the big play, they're going to have to hit. And I think, again, similar to the Boise State game, if they're going to take their chances and they're going to take their shots, they have got to hit. And we know they can. It's just a matter of how quickly they can do it. For this game, clearly, I think it's going to be a close one. It's really tough to say because obviously USF is, they beat Florida on the road. They played Miami on the road. I feel like stuff like that will give them an edge, mostly of the fact that this is North Texas' biggest game. For USF, they've already played a lot of big games. So I think they're more ready. But, that being said, this is clearly their biggest game until they play Memphis or somebody down the road. I'm going to say it's tough because that's the other thing. North Texas has a top 5 defense in the AAC. I think USF barely pulls it off. Now, here's the thing. I will not be, because this is the definition of a trap game, I would not be surprised if North Texas swings it the other way, especially with how good the defense is. The defense is only giving up, on average, 20 points a game. But I feel like if USF can make it a shootout, it's their kind of game. And I think that's what they're going to try to do, because time of possession isn't going to matter for USF. It never has, never will. So staying on schedule, being consistent with the RPO plays are going to be key, and I think USF scrapes by. I'm going to go with a 38-34 win for the Bulls. Hope I'm right, but like I said, North Texas is clearly came to play.
Yeah, we hadn't watched any of their games, so we hadn't really talked about them a ton yet, North Texas. So it was a little bit of a mystery for me to really dive deep into them this last couple of days. I watched all or most of the Washington State game, and then I watched a good portion of the Army game. And what I gathered from the Washington State game was they forced 5 turnovers and set up short fields almost the entire time of those 5 turnovers, which they took advantage of, and credit to them. They were able to score 42 points in that half with all those 5 turnovers. They were 6 of 6 in the red zone. They only had the ball for 12 minutes in that half, and they only had 185 yards. But again, they were efficient in the red zone, which makes a difference. The second half was basically at that point, they were already up 39. So you didn't really see anything out of Washington State or North Texas. They kind of just like this game's over. Let's just bleed the clock. But the quarterback situation for Washington State there, they were like back and forth with guys. So it was like two of them coming back, like back and forth. And like you really couldn't get a grasp on their offense. It felt much like the days of Spurrier. But the Army game, I think, was more telling because I think it was on the road. That Washington State team, I don't know what to make of them so far this year because they also got this Army team. They tied it at the end. It was 38-38 going into overtime. And, North Texas does enough in overtime to win that game. Army, ran the ball pretty well. That fourth quarter drive they had that started in the third quarter was like a 10-minute drive, 17 plays, and they had 0 pass plays. So if USF wants to run the ball, there's a good chance they can. I know that, Army runs a more full house offense. So like you're going to see more tight ends and H-backs in their formation. So like it's not going to be the same running as USF is going to have. But I feel like USF's linemen are probably better than Army's linemen, just, putting it out there. And their running backs are probably more athletic than, Army's running backs and quarterbacks. Just from what I saw, like clearly they can cause turnovers because they, even in the Army game in the first half, they caused 3 turnovers. So that helped them build a pretty big lead to start that game. So both first halves against Army and Washington State, the best 2 opponents they've played so far, they were able to cause 8 turnovers. Now, USF had a lot of turnovers in the game against Charlotte. So hopefully they can limit that. I think they had 3, right? Wasn't it like
I think yeah.
A fumble by Isaac, fumble by Byram, and then an interception by Byram. So if they can get that to 1 or nothing, then they can really kind of take North Texas out of their game of, the luck of the turnovers there. Because a lot of them were just bad throws by Washington State. The Army turnovers were fumbles. So, like, I think if USF is, good with their ball security, they eliminate the turnovers. Defensively, I think they're going to have a hard time, though, USF. I think North Texas is going to be able to score. And you gave a prediction of 38-34. And that's honestly probably what the score is going to be because North Texas runs the up tempo as well. They have a very similar offense to what USF runs. And their wide receivers, I don't know, might be better than USF's as a totality. I like Chaz Nimrod probably better than anyone on the field. But as a totality, it looks like North Texas's wide receivers are better. So it'll be tough there because USF, did get burnt a little bit there in that Charlotte game at times, especially second half on. If the defense does come to play, maybe it might be a different game. Again, they got to eliminate turnovers, like I said. If the offense on North Texas is clicking, you've got to match that. Like it cannot be one where you're getting into a game and you're 3 and outs. You've got to be able to match score for score because North Texas can score pretty well. With that being said, I feel like USF should be able to score on this team because I did see movement on both of those offenses against North Texas's defense. And I feel like USF is probably a better offense than either of those two and with better talent. So I feel like USF should be able to hang in this game. Oh, it's tough because I know you already predicted them to win. I think I want them to win too. I'm just like trying to think of it objectively. And I'm like, I don't know. It's on the road. It's a Friday night. Like you said.
It's not easy. And that's what I said. Out of all the ones, I wouldn't be surprised. This is one of those where I'm like, I hope I don't see it because I'm going to be there. But I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, this is probably USF's hardest game all year, outside of that Memphis game. And well, do they play Memphis and Navy on the road too?
Yes, they
Oh
do.
my lord! How do the three toughest opponents all three on the road? That is remarkable. How did
I don't know. I
USC
guess
do that?
Jim Levitt made some deal with the devil, and now we're paying for it.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna go with. I can't just go with my heart because it's just it's not right. I have to be objective here, and I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna say North Texas wins, but I'm gonna say like a 31-28, and maybe like North Texas scores late there to win it. I hope I'm wrong, but I just
Me
feel
too.
like it's a road game. It's like I said, it's going to be a pretty intense environment, and I want them to win, but I feel like North Texas is going to pull it off. Okay, moving on to Ohio State, Illinois.
Billy Buck.
Yeah, I'm intrigued with this game because it's like, Illinois got smoked by Indiana, and Altmaier looked kind of average in that game, or maybe even mediocre. And then the last two games against USC and Purdue, he went for 390 and 328 in those games, and just I don't know what to make. Like, I'm like, is Altmaier this good? Is USC's defense not as good? I know Purdue is not as good, but like, what do we expect out of this game? Wide receiver for Illinois, Beatty, had a huge game against Purdue as well, 186 yards. They only had 2 conversions out of 11 in that game, but had 22 first downs. So they were having great success on first and second downs. And then in the USC game, they were, 7 of 10 on conversions. And so they seemed to like have USC's number in that game. Like, even if they were getting to like third downs, they were able to convert there and keep the ball moving and keep their offense on the field. But they defensively have struggled in those conversions. When the Purdue game, they allowed 7 of 13, and then USC was 12 of 14. So I don't know what to make there, because it seems like Illinois, like, defensively is strong enough, but they're still allowing teams to move the ball at a decent clip. Because even though Purdue is not very good, they still move the ball decently, and USC made a lot of plays and were very close to winning that game. Ohio State, on the other hand, beat the crap out of Minnesota. Won 42-3. Julian Sayin threw for 326 yards. Carnell Tate had 183. They forced 7 punts, and they only allowed 1 third down conversion in that game. So, I like Ohio State a lot in this game. It's in Champaign, so, it might be an intense crowd, but it's an early game. It's that noon kickoff garbage that Fox loves to do, conversely, the Alabama-Missouri game is a noon game too. I don't know how that fell through, but I like Ohio State in this one. I think Illinois will probably stay around in this game for a while. Ohio State's defense is good enough to really, kind of hamper Altmaier. I think it's probably like a, 37-20 game, and maybe Ohio State is like putting in their backups with the last like drive or something. What do you got, Ian?
Well, doing the homework on this game, obviously, this was one of the longest running rivalries until 2016, when the scheduling just kind of stopped. And this is the first time they're playing since 2017, but it's been largely dominated by Ohio State. Last time Illinois won was in 2007, when everything was on fire in college football. And on top of that
was Ron Zook.
It was Ron. I was going to say Ron Zook. He went from one blue and orange team to another blue and orange team.
They were
something about
literally wearing Illinois stuff while they were practicing with Florida until they left. It was insane. Like the coaches were like wearing Illinois gear while they were practicing with Florida.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, that was funny. But yeah, it was 2007 the last time they had it, and on top of that, since then Ohio State has won every game since they've played, and the only time it is the closest margin of victory that Illinois has gotten to, where they've lost every game, but it's been 10 points. Every game has been a blowout, and the last time they won in Champaign was in 1991.
Oh, wow.
It has been now they've won other games in between, but it's always been in Columbus. But yeah, 1991 was the last time. And since hockey season just started, some guy named Mario Lemieux just won his first Stanley Cup with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Yeah. Anyways.
It's not Wayne Gretzky trivia today.
Not this time. For this game, though, I feel like with Illinois, what they're going to have to do is, like they did with USC, make it a shootout. That's what their strength is, their offense. And clearly that's going to be what they're going to try to do, force Ohio State's hand. But the problem is that Ohio State has the number one defense in the Big Ten, the third best defense in the country, and the third best passing defense in the country as well.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be easy. And I think Illinois, I don't think this is going to be as bad of a blowout as it was against Indiana or the last couple of meetings with Ohio State. But I feel like Ohio State will get the job done, and the defense will, get to Altmaier a bit. I think Altmaier will do everything he can. We know how talented he is, but I don't think there's enough there to kind of get Ohio State off balance. So I'm going to go Buckeyes winning. They'll take the Illy Buck Trophy back to Columbus. I'm going to go with let's do a 34-20 win for Ohio State.
All right, moving on to Alabama, Missouri. I want to hear your thoughts on this one first.
Yeah, the Ohio State, Bama and Missouri. Noon kickoff. It's in Columbia. This is going to be an interesting. Obviously, the shining light has been the running game for Missouri on top of Prabula coming out party. He's got the 9 touchdowns. He's already over 1,000 yards. But the running game, especially from guys like Hardy for Missouri, has been really, really good.
Yeah.
But Alabama's starting to get it together. They really faced. Obviously they won the game against Georgia. They pulled that one out. And then when things were looking, like here we go again against Vandy, they stayed focused, stayed the course. They realized, hey, we're the better team here. And they went out and played a whole 4 quarters. I feel like that's what Bama is going to do here. They're going to play a full 4 quarters. Obviously, Missouri is going to be trying to be the perfect trap team. They're excellent at this. But I think Bama gets it done. I think guys like, Ty Simpson, Ryan Williams, those guys are getting, obviously clicking, and Jam Miller being back to healthy. The offense is going to be way tougher to stop now. So I'm going to take Bama winning. I think Missouri will probably keep it close to the half, but I think Bama pulls away at the end. I'm going to go with a 31-19 victory.
Yeah, this Missouri team is like, last 4 years, it seems like they only have 1 or 2 tough games all year, and they kind of get inflated with playing bad teams. So, they look, numbers wise, record wise, they look great, but when they play a good team, they get smoked. And so they're playing a good team here. Like you said, Alabama was left for dead week 1, and now they've come back so much since then. Played great against Georgia. They dominated against Wisconsin. They played really well against Vanderbilt and really kind of, stifled them the second half. They shut them out, and they're just, I don't know, they're just better than what people had thought they were at the beginning of the year. The difference from beginning of the year to now is night and day. And that Missouri team, I don't think is ready for this Alabama team. I don't think they're good enough. Prabula is a okay quarterback. The game against South Carolina, he didn't put up a ton of yardage through the air. He had some yards on the ground. Yes, their running backs are great. Hardy and Roberts, those guys are studs. They're a great 1-2 punch. Defensively, they've looked pretty good, but again, they haven't played anyone. So now they get a real test. And again, I have talked about this since that first game, and I've really been keeping track of Ty Simpson. The guy at this point has to be a front runner for the Heisman. He's put up like 300 plus yards in almost every game that he's played. He played really well against Georgia, probably the best team he'll play all year. And, he's standing out. Like, I know he struggled in that game against Florida State, and he's probably the reason they lost. But since then, he's been the reason that they've won and the reason that they've looked so good. So this kid will take them as far as he goes. And I'm being a believer now. Like, I'm seeing him week in, week out. The kid seems to have it. And he was a 5-star coming out of high school. So it wasn't like he wasn't like talented. Everyone knew he had talent. It's just he had to sit behind people. Jalen Milroe had athleticism, so he sat behind him. And now it's like really starting to take off for him. And I feel great for him because he really stood by and stayed with Alabama the whole time. And it's working out for him. And that's great. You always want to see stories like that where guys are patient. Kyle Trask was that. Mac Jones was that. Just the patience to stay with the team that gave you the scholarship and the opportunity. So, no, I just feel like Alabama's going to win this one pretty easily. I'm going to say like a 34-17 game. Let's move on to UCLA, Michigan State. I don't know what to make of this Michigan State team because they looked like they were staying with Nebraska in that game, and it was like 14-14. It was like back and forth, and then like Nebraska just like took it to them at the end of that game. But I don't really like Aiden Childs a ton. I don't think he's that great of a quarterback. He's a big guy. He's athletic and like can do some things, but like I haven't seen a ton out of him that I'm like impressed with. He's largely inaccurate right now, and it could be a combination of the team not being as good, so that kind of lends itself to him struggling. But I don't know. The other guy came in and was like 6 of 7 and like had a TD. Depends on who's playing. I think probably that other guy might have a chance just because Childs was struggling so bad. Regardless, for this game, if Nico plays as well as he did last week, which he was basically like National Player of the Week by everyone, if he plays as well as he did last week against a way better team in Penn State, I think they have a shot. The converse side of it is the fact that they're playing at like, I don't know, what is it, like 11 a.m. Eastern time Central time. So it's an early game. They're going to have to get up at like 6, 7 in the morning to get ready for this game, travel, whatever, do the warm-ups. But I think they'll be all right. I think they can build on what they did last week, which was huge. The win against Penn State was a monumental win. They got to keep pushing forward. If Neuheisel has a game plan like he did last week, Michigan State's defense is not that great. They can put up points. They put up 42 last week. I think they can put up at least 35. I'm going to say if that offense that we saw last week comes out this week, I feel like they can win like 35 to like 28. What do you got, Ian?
And on top of that, I feel like UCLA's defense can get to Michigan State more as well, because Childs definitely dual threat guy, but that offensive line has really let him down. I feel like that's kind of a problem too. The good thing is he can run, so he can run out of the pocket. So that might be a new layer that they haven't seen yet at UCLA, because clearly with Allard, he was a pocket passer, but with Childs, he's going to be running a lot. So they're going to have to change their plans with the linebackers, probably put Spire, blitz packages to make sure he doesn't escape the edge. But I feel confident with UCLA's defense being able to get enough stops here. If they can do as good as they can on defense last week, especially the first half that they did against Penn State, I think they'll be okay, regardless how many points they have. I feel like if UCLA can honestly get 24 points on the board, that might be enough. So I think UCLA keeps it rolling. I'm going to take them here. I don't know if this counts as an upset, but I'm going to take the Bruins winning. I'm going to go with a 27-17 win for UCLA.
Okay, moving on to UCF Cincinnati. Give me your thoughts first.
Yeah, it's funny, these guys, because they were originally in the MAC, then both split, and then they kept playing each other in the AAC. So, and for history, both of these teams, their first Big 12 wins technically were against each other both years. So I was like, does it count? I don't know if it should. But anyways, Cincinnati, yeah, since he's been going off since that loss to Nebraska, they had that close one against Kansas, then that huge upset where they were running up the score in the first half against Iowa State and were able to lock it down in the second half and beat them. They have the third best offense in the Big 12 right now, and they're, you know, like I said, they really have all the momentum going. UCF, they've obviously been doing good. They're 3-2. They've lost 2 in a row though in Big 12 play. They had that big one against North Carolina, but since then they lost to Kansas State, lost to Kansas. So if it's a team that starts with a K, not looking good for UCF. And with Cincinnati, I mean, it's with a K sound, so anything like that.
All right, hooked on phonics.
So with this game, though, I'm liking Cincinnati here because I feel like, though this is a trap game, this is one of those, because they had that emotional one against Iowa State. UCF could take advantage of that, where Cincy's maybe not as focused. But I think Cincinnati takes care of it. UCF does have a top 5 defense in the Big 12. But I'm going to take Cincinnati pulling away in the end. I think it might be one of those tips, because these teams always play each other close. I'm going to go with a let's do like 30-27 win for Cincy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's probably going to be close. I mean, you know, UCF is not terrible. I've watched the Kansas State game, and even though Kansas State kind of was in control of that game, UCF offensively was like, you know, moving the ball pretty decently. They can run the ball well. You know, I don't know a ton of their team, because outside of that game, I really haven't paid attention to them, just keeping track of scores. And I'll see, like, you know, they lost to Kansas State after a while in that game. But I have been seeing Cincinnati, and we've seen them last week when we kept track of that Iowa State game, and then also we were keeping tabs of them in that Nebraska game. So they looked really bad in that Nebraska game. They had very little offense there, but the Iowa State game, they kind of dominated that game, and Iowa State needed a miracle just to kind of come back in that one. They almost got it. They were close. I feel like Sorsby is doing enough with that offense. He's not like, you know, the most gifted quarterback. He doesn't have like the biggest arm in the world, but I think he does enough. I think Cincinnati probably should win this game. It's in Cincinnati. You know, UCF, I don't think they're destined for like a 7-8 win year. They're probably going to be like a 4 or 5 win team, and maybe they've just met their peak so far. So this is going to be a tough game for them. I think Cincinnati wins this one. I think UCF will keep it somewhat close, but I think Cincinnati will win by like 8 or 9. I'm going to say like Cincinnati like 29-21. All right, let's move on to Washington State, Ole Miss. Washington State, you know, like I said, I was talking about them with North Texas. They got blown out by North Texas. They got blown out by Washington, which in that Washington game, it was like second half got blown out. I think it was even fourth quarter they got blown out there. But I don't know what to make of this Washington State team. You know, Ole Miss is kind of on a roll. They beat LSU. Chambliss is doing great things. Doesn't look like Austin Simmons is coming back yet. I don't even know if he's going to get the job because Chambliss is looking amazing right now. Ole Miss, you know, I don't know what to make of them because outside of the LSU game, I want to see more of them because like they kind of were in a shootout with Arkansas where they barely won. You know, the Tulane game, they were better than Tulane, so it's not really a great like test for them. These games coming up, they've got Georgia, they've got Florida, you know, they'll have some other tests. We'll see how tough this team is. You know, because it's Georgia in Athens, the Florida game's in Ole Miss, but I don't know. I feel like Ole Miss should win this game easily. This is not a game that Lane Kiffin is going to take lightly. I think he wants to make a statement here because it is, you know, formerly Power 4 team that they're playing against. I feel like they should win like 38 to like 20. What do you got?
Yeah, and for me as well, Washington State's schedule, with the exception of playing Washington, there's been a lot of layups, and the only other exception would be North Texas. They got blown out by North Texas, obviously, when they played them on the road. And their one road win 2 weeks ago was Colorado State, where they won 20-3. Now you got to go to Oxford, way tougher environment.
Yeah.
So I feel like just that in general is going to be a bit of a rattle the cage a bit for the Cougars. The offense hasn't really been, it has not been where it needs to be for Washington State. Far cry of when, you know, Leach was there. Defensively, it's been a bit better against certain teams, but I feel like this Ole Miss offense, especially the running game, will have no problem right now. And the defense has been getting better. You know, the Tulane and the LSU game, you've been seeing improvements on the defense after they, you know, gave up 35 to Arkansas. So I think Ole Miss handles business. I think they'll pull away here. I'm going to go with a let's do like 40-17.
Okay. Big game of the day. Number 7, Indiana. Number 2 or number 3, depending on your rankings, Oregon. I mean, like, if there was a game I could be at this year, it would be this game. I love the, like, you know, the Ducks, the uniforms, the stadium at Outson. I love all the, like, what comes with Oregon. Dan Lanning's a great coach, you know, defensive minded, but like keeping the offensive, like philosophy at Oregon that's been there for, I don't know, 20 years now. And, you know, this Indiana team, you know, I've talked about them. I love Cignetti. The team does not have the greatest talent, but they are just dominating teams for the most part outside of that Iowa game. And, you know, they have a great quarterback in Mendoza. Their, you know, offense and defense is stout on both sides of the ball. You know, they're able to move the ball very well. Defensively, they make teams make mistakes. They already have a special teams block, I believe, in the Iowa game. And, you know, and I think they had one in the Illinois game too. So, like, they are, you know, extremely competent in all 3 phases of the game. I think I like Oregon in this game, though. Like, I like Indiana a ton, but I just feel like it's in Outson. It's a, you know, a huge game. This is like game days there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so game day's there for this game. So it is a lot going to be going on. You know, it's going to be chaos. I think that favors Oregon a ton. It really does. You know, Indiana has not seen a crowd like this outside of the Ohio State game last year. And, you know, it's going to be crazy. I like Dante Moore a ton. We've been talking about Dante for like 3 years now since he was at UCLA. And the kid is talented. He's got a great arm, super smart, not crazy fast athletic wise, but enough athleticism to make the RPO game work very well for them. There are a ton of speedsters for Oregon at wide receiver and running back. They'll be able to make plays there. Defensively, they looked great against Penn State. They held Penn State and Alar to almost nothing, like 137 for Alar. Singleton and Allen, they only had 75 yards on 23 carries, so they pretty much kept that whole offense in check. I think Oregon's going to win this one. I'm going to say Oregon. They probably win probably in a closer game than I think people expect. I think people are expecting fireworks. I think I'm going to go with a low-scoring game. So I'm going to say the under, and I'm going to say like a 24-20 game. What do you got?
Yeah, and Oregon currently, after Georgia's lost to Alabama a few weeks ago, Oregon now has the longest home winning streak with 18 in a row. The last time they lost in general, it was against Washington in 2023. That was Dan Lanning's first season. He hasn't lost a game at home since then. So it's definitely been a really tough environment. And if you think it's easy, ask Ohio State last year how easy it was.
Yeah.
This game clearly for Indiana, I mean, you thought the Illinois game was the biggest one so far. This one, much, much more difficult because now they're on the road. They're in Oregon. And the team is – both of them what's hilarious is in the Big Ten – the second best offense is Indiana. The third best offense is Oregon.
Yeah.
The second best defense, Indiana. Third best defense, Oregon. So when it comes to stuff like that, you kind of have to throw the stats out the window because you're like, well, I mean,
it's good on good. At both sides, it's good on good. So yeah,
they're good on good, but I feel like. Yeah, it's one of those things. I usually side with history, and I feel like with Oregon, I'm going to take them winning it. I think Oregon gets it done. I'm going to go with a close one, too. I'm going to go with like a 28-23 win for the Ducks.
Okay, moving on to the game that Ian's going to be at, Oklahoma, Texas. I want to hear your thoughts first.
So I've been looking forward to this game all year since I heard last year that we were going to go because it's one of the best rivalries in all college football. And regardless of what the record is, you always know this game is going to be fun. It goes either two ways. It's either a huge historic blowout or it's going to come down to some ridiculous like last-second Hail Mary where a team wins by a touchdown or a field goal.
Yeah,
it's what I love about this game. And it's just two sides that just hate each other, doing whatever they can to beat each other. It's the beauty of college football. Obviously, in this game, if you were to tell me at the beginning of the year that the Heisman favorite quarterback and the team in the top 10 and undefeated would be Oklahoma, and the team that is struggling on offense and stuck in the mud is Texas, I would have been like, dude, drug advancements have made a long way in the next couple of months, man. That's awesome. So I'm very excited for this game. Obviously, the biggest thing here is John Mateer going to play? And it's still up in the air. We literally just today, they were being very coy with it. Mateer clearly wants to play. And the whole surgery was kind of set up for him to come back again at Red River. With all that being said, man, it's yeah. I think Texas pulls it off because this rivalry is so unpredictable. Even if Mateer comes back, he had surgery on his thumb. The grip of the ball, I don't know, that's where accuracy could become an issue. And this is where Texas's defense needs to step up. You cannot go back-to-back weeks laying an egg and getting just run up and down the field. That was the strength Texas had through, no matter how bad the offense was, that was the strength they had. But now, after, obviously against the Florida game, they have to bounce back. And I feel like they can. I'm going to take Texas in it, and I feel like to play their style of game. Obviously, we're going to have to talk about the offense with Texas. It's very simple. Get a freaking running game going. Arch Manning cannot do everything himself.
Yeah.
You have got to set up either toss plays to the outside, stretch plays, because clearly running up the middle is not working, or even screen plays, something to give the passing game and Manning some like breathing room. Make everything easy, high percentage. Sure, you could go for the big play, but there's nothing wrong with nickel and diming it if it's working. Make it third and manageable.
Yeah.
Clearly, Oklahoma, somehow Texas is the favorite. And I think it's Mateer, but if Mateer comes back, I feel like regardless, Texas's defense finds a way to get it done. Now, for the offense, obviously protecting Arch Manning in the pocket is going to be crucial. But that's the thing. This is where you got to run those plays where if that pocket breaks down quick, you have to have a dump at either the running back, the tight end. Somebody has got to be on the flare route or the flat to easily pass it out, which they are not doing. So one of those kind of plays to make it easier for Texas to just run down the field. And, of course, a running game. Holy cow, if they can get a running game going, they're going to be scary. But I feel like with this rivalry, it's very unpredictable. I think Texas gets it done. It's my upset of the week. I think the Longhorns, get a bounce back. They win with or without Mateer. I think the Longhorns win. I'm going to go with a 30 to 25 win, some crazy score like that.
I mean, at this moment, I think I'm still leaning towards Oklahoma, regardless of Mateer being there, just because of how average Texas looked in that Florida game. They couldn't block Florida at all, and Oklahoma's D-line is similar to Florida's. There's a lot of talent there. They had 11 sacks against Auburn, and Arnold is way more of a running quarterback than Arch is. And I feel like that's going to be a similar case here because Florida was in that backfield the entire day. I think they had 33 or 34 pressures on Oklahoma in that game. So and that was only doing 4-man fronts. That wasn't even blitzing. They were doing the simulated pressures, but still, that was, only 4 really going in. And they were still getting to the quarterback, getting to Arch almost I'd say 70% of the time. And, he did hit some passes there at the end, end of the third quarter and fourth quarter, where he hit some deep passes. And he'll need Wingo and number 13 for Texas. I forget his name.
Livingston.
What is it?
Livingston, yeah.
Livingston, and then that guy from Stanford. They need all 3 of those guys to have good games because the running game seems to be non-existent. And I don't know if they're going to go to it because even Auburn struggled to run the ball as well against Oklahoma. So maybe that'll be a thing again because Oklahoma's defense, which we haven't really talked a ton of outside of what I've just mentioned, is really stout. Yeah. And that could be the reason why I feel like Oklahoma should be favored. That's the reason why they'll be in this game. I think Mateer being out leaves a real mystery as far as offense. Their quarterback that was there last week against Kent State did adequate, but that was Kent State. They're going to play a much better team in Texas. But Texas struggled against DJ Lagway in Florida, who did nothing all year. And so now you're expecting to come out and to have a better performance here. I don't know. If Mateer was playing, I would definitely favor Oklahoma by 2 scores. Without Mateer, I feel like Oklahoma still might be the better team, just on my assessment. But it seems like Texas might have enough here. And you might be right because these rivalry games are so weird where it's the favorite team doesn't always win. And it's one where it's you expect this team to be on a roll and to win, but for whatever reason, I don't know. But we won't know until Friday or maybe even game time if Mateer plays. It's a mystery. I'm going to say Texas wins as well. I'm going with you. I'm going to say Texas wins like, 27-24, close one. And maybe like Oklahoma has the ball last and like turns it over on the last drive. Okay. Next one we've got is NC State, Notre Dame. NC State lost to Duke, lost to Vatek, who fired their coach. Conversely, Notre Dame destroyed Arkansas, who fired their coach.
Yeah.
So they have some similarities in their narratives. They barely broke a sweat against Boise State. I just like Notre Dame a lot. They've looked better the last couple of weeks. The game against Texas A&M was a rough loss. They barely lost that game. It was by a point, a missed extra point, and then they lost the game against Miami on the road. I think Notre Dame is on the journey back to the playoffs if they can keep winning. They have a tough road to go because that USC game is looming large. I think they get this win here. It's in Notre Dame, or it's in South Bend. I feel like they'll win like 42 to like 20. What do you got?
I agree. Notre Dame's starting to kind of find themselves and right the ship. I will say this though. This game, I think, will be a lot closer than maybe some are thinking because NC State, while they've had bad losses, Notre Dame's defense, especially against the pass, has not been good so far this year. And with the guy like CJ Bailey, I mean, he threw 4 touchdowns against Campbell, which is good. But even against the loss against Vatek, he still had almost 300 yards. He had almost 400 yards in the shootout with Duke. He's a really good quarterback, and I feel like it might be a shootout, honestly, with these two. But I like Notre Dame's more balanced attack. So I'm going to go with the Irish winning. I'm going to go with, like I said, I think it's going to be a close one. I'm going to go with a 34-31 win for the Irish.
Okay, moving on to another team that we cover, USC, welcoming Michigan into the Coliseum. I wish I could go to this game as well. I have some business with my union that I have to take care of, and my friend's birthday is later that evening as well, so I won't be able to go to the game. I wanted to get some coverage because it'd be a really good game to get coverage for, but both these teams come in with one loss, so like they have a lot to play for, either one. But it's kind of like a loser goes home type game because you lose this game and it might be, looking forward to next year. USC, they've looked good all year on offense. Defensively, they've struggled in some of the games. They struggled against Illinois. They kind of kept Purdue around for a little bit there. Michigan, conversely, they looked good against Wisconsin. Wisconsin's not very good this year. Everybody's looking good against them.
Yeah.
Underwood had a good game. He had 270 yards. McCulley had a big game, 112 and a TD. Haynes put up 117 and 2 TDs. They were up 24-7 till late in that game. So they were basically, the game was never in doubt. The Nebraska game, Underwood only threw for 105, but Haynes went off for 149. I think Maiyava needs to have a big game. And I think if the running back tandem for USC goes off, which I feel like it should, I feel like they're probably the best tandem that Michigan has seen all year. I think if the offense can make this a shootout, I think it favors USC because I don't think Michigan is ready for that yet with Underwood. I think he's just not there yet. And I think USC can score 35 plus in this game against Michigan. USC's offense is it's probably the best they've seen all year. And I think USC scores 38, and I'm going to say Michigan scores like 27. What do you got?
I think with this one, it's going to come down to the defenses, especially because of the weakness on both of the team's defenses. USC has one of the worst passing defense so far of the year. I think it's second to last in the Big Ten, and it's like near the 100 ranges in all of the country. But they're top 25 in rushing defense, which is kind of Michigan's bread and butter, even with Bryce Underwood. Bryce Underwood only has 3 passing touchdowns the whole year, but he's so dynamic of a runner that it really doesn't matter what he can do with his arm because of how good he is with his legs. But I feel like if USC can clamp down, kind of like what Oklahoma did, force him to stay in the pocket, don't let him escape the edge, USC's got him right where they want him. The goal will be force Underwood to throw the ball. Force, as bad as you've looked on the throw, you might as well have them beat you through the air than beat you on the ground. Because if Michigan beats you on the ground, the game's over. I feel like Michigan, if they beat them on the ground, it won't be close.
Yeah.
On the other side, USC, I feel like with them on defense, they're going to have to, or on offense, because they have the third best passing offense. And Michigan's kind of middle of the pack. They've been giving up over 200 yards a game through the air. That's going to be the key. Just keep the ball in the air. And obviously, if you can run the ball and draw plays and stuff, draw them in. But again, I don't know if this – I think, because USC is still unranked, I'm going to go USC winning. I think USC can pull it off in the Coliseum. I feel more confident that if they play the game that Oklahoma did against Michigan and keep Underwood bottled up, they can win that game. And I feel like Mailata is more dangerous as a passer than Underwood is as a runner. So I'm going to go Trojans winning. I'm going to go with a 28-20 win for SC.
Okay, moving on to Florida A&M. I don't know. I'm definitely at this point. I'm kind of like, this game, it's in College Station. It's against a team that heavily recruited DJ Lagway. DJ kind of shared time with Mertz last year in the game in Gainesville. So he didn't really get to show out. The offense was kind of sputtering in that first couple of games there. And he was still only like, it was like maybe the fourth or fifth drive that he's played in his entire career yet. So he was kind of limited there. Marcel Reed went off. But, DJ looked great last week against Texas. He really looked comfortable. He got the ball out quick. He made a lot of great plays. That great throw to J. Michael Sturdivant with the sidearm action. He had the look off for VB3's long pass. And Dallas Wilson, Dallas Wilson is the biggest X factor I think I've seen in a receiver in college football in a long time. And that includes Jeremiah Smith, who was the reason why Ohio State won a championship last year. The kid already came out in his first game against a top 10 team and just destroyed their DBs and made them look like he's only 18. He made them look like high schoolers. Mm-hmm. That's what it looked like to me. He made them look like high schoolers. And I just think he's just going to get better as we go on, and he's going to dominate. And I think that maybe honestly, the reason why Napier is as confident about this team as he's been, even though the whole time they've struggled on offense, they went 1-3. I think he knew he was getting Dallas Wilson, and he knew, I know when we get this kid back, we're going to be throwing the ball all over the field, and they're not going to be able to stop us. And they really, Texas, in that Texas game, Florida should have won by 14 points to 20 points because they were just that much better than Texas. They dominated line of scrimmage, and DJ looked way better than Arch Manning in that game. And defensively, I think like they played a great game up until like the last bit of the game where, Texas had to throw the ball a ton to get back into it. So of course you're going to give up some yards. Like, it's kind of like what this has come to for Florida now. It really feels like it's become an NFL type schedule where you have every game is a tough game no matter who the opponent is, and you can lose every week no matter what. And so, even if you start at 1-3, you see NFL teams do it where they'll start 1-3, like last year with the Rams. They started 1-4 or whatever, and they made the playoffs. Like, it is still possible to make the playoffs. I know this team probably won't, but I'm just being more like what this seems like with Florida now, with how things are trending towards in college football. You're seeing the 9-game conference slate that's coming next year. You're going to see more of a schedule where it's tough games all year, and you're not going to be able to take cupcake games. Florida's going to have Florida State and 9-game conference games. So that leaves only 2 openings there. One will probably be a cupcake, and then there's a couple of schedules in the future where it has like they've taken some of them off, but there's some still on there. Notre Dame and some others, UCF at some point. So they're not getting like layups there in most of those years. So I'm just saying, like, it's just the reality of what it is for Florida. And I know I'm going off on a tangent here. Someone says, but does USC have the defense like OU to do that to Michigan? Yes, USC. I don't know if USC has the defense. I don't think they do, but I still think USC is going to score 10. But going back to Florida, I just feel like in this game with Texas A&M, because I was watching their games against Notre Dame and their game against Mississippi State. The game against Mississippi State was a lot closer. They kind of took over there in the second half, and they kept Shapen in check for the most part, even though Mississippi State's offense has done quite well so far this year. Mississippi State's defense was able to get some stops. There was a 4th down stop in the first half. Reed got picked off. And in the Notre Dame game, though, you saw A&M with a lot of explosive plays, which I saw someone say that that Texas A&M does not have a lot of explosive plays. And I don't know the number specifically, but I saw in that Notre Dame game, they had like at least 4 or 5 explosive plays that I can recall when I was watching the like 15-minute recap. So, I think this team is fully capable, and that's what Florida really needs to be watching out for here in this game, is limiting those explosive plays. Marcel Reed is going to get free. I like Miles Graham to be the spy here because he is super fast and super intelligent, and he reacts super quickly. So I can see him doing tremendously well against Reed, keeping him in check. With Texas A&M, they've got a lot of options here. Le'Veon Moss, they've got Concepcion, they've got Craver. There's a ton of offensive output here, and their defense is very stout. Like, they looked very good the last couple of weeks, kept Mississippi State in check, pretty much just denied Auburn of anything. Eliminated their run game. I know some people have talked about it on Twitter that UTSA and Utah State was able to run the ball well against them. And I think that was the case. And I have noted that too, because we had that game on our list of games to watch earlier in the year. So we definitely are aware of that. I just think it seems like Texas A&M defensively is getting better as the time goes on. And they've only gotten better with the opponents like ratcheting up. Like, it's, the Notre Dame game was the toughest one they've had, but like Auburn and now Mississippi State and now a Florida team. So it's like they've kind of stepped up every time into the next level of competition. I think A&M is going to win this game. I know I'm long-winded here throughout this whole thing. I want Florida to win this game, but it's a tough game. It's in College Station. It's going to be 7:00 game?
Yeah, night game.
So it's a night game, so it's going to be loud. I think Florida can stay in this game, but I think A&M does enough to win, and I think A&M wins like a 24 to 21 game. What do you got?
So the last time that Florida beat a top 10 team when they were the road team was 2012 against Florida State, when Florida State was number 10. And even further back, they've done it twice, and it was both against Florida State. The last time was when it was Ron Zook Field, the 2004 matchup. So unless you're named Florida State, it's not a good look for the Gators when they're playing a top 10 team on the road. I don't have the specific statistics, but they're 0-something for a long time, not counting obviously neutral site games like the SEC championship or the Georgia matchup.
Yeah.
So again, I feel like this is one of those crashing back to reality moments, because like I said last week, and I told you, Napier always does this. He gets a big win at home, and then it kind of comes crashing down the next game or the week after. And I feel like this is what's going to happen, especially because with a quarterback like Marcel Reed, now he's not as maybe, I think, mobile or even as athletic as Arch Manning, but if he needs, he can move the pocket, and there are plays designed for him on the option. And Florida has struggled ever since Urban Meyer left, honestly, against handling mobile quarterbacks. So, like I said, it's a road game. History doesn't bode well for the Gators. I'm going to agree with you. I like A&M winning this one. I'm going to go with let's do I think the defense is able to step up here, but I'm going to go with let's say 24-17, something like that.
Nice. Okay. Let's move on to, I know I'm a little off schedule here because I went to the USC game. So let's go to Georgia Auburn. I want to hear your thoughts on this game.
Deep South's oldest rivalry. And Georgia, there's a lot of talk about the Tennessee game with their long win streak. And Georgia has another one with Auburn. They won 8 straight in a row. Obviously, the last time was in 2017 where they beat Auburn, or when Auburn beat Georgia on the Plains. And, of course, didn't matter. Georgia won the SEC championship and then went on to the national championship where they lost to Bama. This, Auburn's been a really enigmatic team this year. I feel like in this game, Georgia, even after the loss to Bama, it's still a really talented team, athletes everywhere. The offense has not been taking that step, with the exception of the Tennessee game, that we were expecting. But I feel like against a team like Auburn, they'll handle business and take care of it. I feel like it's going to be one of those business trip kind of mentalities that Georgia's really good at. I'm going to take Georgia taking care of business. I'm going to go with let's do a 28-14 win for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, like I said with Georgia, Tennessee, until Auburn can beat Georgia, until Georgia can beat Alabama, I have to see it. Until it's regularly done, I'm not going to believe it. So I'm just not a believer in Hugh Freeze yet. They beat Baylor in the first game of the year, and then they struggled against Oklahoma to really protect Arnold at all. They stayed in the game against A&M, but were never really in it because their offense didn't do a darn thing. And, their defense kept them in it. And I think that may be the case here, is that their defense keeps them in this game, which could be possible, because that Georgia-Alabama game, Georgia really didn't do much outside of those 4 or 5 explosive plays. Stockton only had 100 and whatever yards in that game. I think Auburn can do the same. I'm not the biggest believer in Stockton. I believe that Auburn can probably stay in this game defensively, but conversely, I don't think they're strong enough offensively to put a scare into Georgia. I think this game is probably a 20-17 game, and maybe like Georgia has the ball last, and they run out the clock with 5 minutes and hit a field goal to win it type thing. Okay, moving on to next one we've got is Kansas, Texas Tech. What are your thoughts on this one, Ian?
I like Tech in this one mostly because as much as we have been praising the offense, and rightfully so, of Morton, the defense of Tech has been phenomenal. It's, the second best next to BYU in the Big 12, and it's top 25 in the country, which I don't feel like a lot of people are talking, because obviously the offense has been really good, but the defense has been right on the same level. I will say, though, based on how well Jalen Daniels has been playing this year, he already has 16 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions so far in the year. It's an incredible split. This game is going to be a lot closer than I think even Tech is going to be ready for. But I like it that, that it's in Lubbock and Kansas. I mean, they've lost some games. Obviously, that loss to Cincinnati and then obviously losing the border war to Missouri showed that if you go toe-to-toe with them on offense, you can beat them, and Tech is right up there with them. So I'm going to go Tech winning a shootout. I'm going to go a 38-30 win for the Red Raiders.
Yeah, I just like Tech's defense a ton. They really dominated Utah in that game, and they kind of dominated Houston as well. I think they do the same thing to Kansas here. I think, honestly, that is the most underappreciated aspect of Texas Tech. Is I know I even saw someone from a Tampa Bay news reporter talking about the Bucs Seattle game, and he's like, it's like a Big 12 game, and I'm like, I don't know if you realize they actually play decent defense in the Big 12. There's some teams that play pretty solid D. So, and Texas Tech is definitely one of them. And they have, got a lot of guys out of the transfer portal. They make a lot of plays, cause a lot of turnovers, are stiff on run defense. I think Texas Tech blows them out. I'm going to say Tech wins 42-17. Okay, moving on. South Carolina, LSU. I mean, I don't know what to make of this South Carolina team because they have an ungodly stretch the next 5 weeks where it's LSU and Alabama and Oklahoma. It is one of the most insane stretches a team will have. I think every team in the next 5 weeks is in the top 11. And I think LSU is the lowest ranked team that they'll play as of right now. I think it's a home game for Baton Rouge, or a home game for LSU in Baton Rouge. So LSU should be favored in this one, and I think they are. I like Sellers a ton. I've been a huge Sellers fan since last year. I think he can, do some things here in this game. I think LSU's defense is not as great as a lot of people thought they were. Plus, LSU's offense struggles. It's not very good. They looked mediocre against Ole Miss. They barely did anything against Florida outside of 2 drives. I think South Carolina can be in this game. I think this is the most winnable game of that stretch for South Carolina. And I think they get their get-back game from last year. So I think South Carolina, who should have probably won last year in Columbia, I think they're going to get the game this year, and I think it's going to be close. I'm going to say a 28-24 game. What do you got, Ian?
If this game was played in the afternoon, I would take, honestly, South Carolina.
I thought the same thing. But I'm just feeling it because I like Sellers a ton. And I feel LSU, I think their offense and defense are just not as good as we think they are.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think either have been good, especially because Ole Miss has kind of given the playbook out of how you can beat this team. But I will say this. If it was an afternoon, 3:30 game, I'm taking South Carolina.
Yeah.
It's at 7:45, and anytime it's at night, somehow, some way, LSU finds a way to scrape these wins out, usually 9 times out of 10. I feel like obviously the game plan will be like it was with Ole Miss. Get the linebackers of LSU moving around, get them, moving, and find a way to, not focus on one area. And a guy like Sellers can definitely do that. And especially because LSU's offense hasn't looked as good, but I don't know. I got a bad feeling that LSU just finds a way to win because it's at night. It's in Death Valley, and South Carolina, even when, Sellers was down, yeah, I'm going to take LSU. I'm going to think they find a way to pull it out. They get their bounce back game after Ole Miss, and I'm going to take them winning probably an ugly game. I'm going to go let's do 23-17, something like that.
Okay, next game we've got is BYU Arizona. I want to hear your thoughts on this one before I give mine.
Yeah, BYU is now in the driver's seat. Well, everybody technically is in the driver's seat of the Big 12 now. But we talked about it last week. This was definitely a trap game for BYU, especially because Arizona has had a lot of talent. And, they're 4-1. Their only loss was a bad loss to Iowa State. But, they blew out Oklahoma State, which everybody and their mother has. But they got to win against Kansas State. I like, obviously Fafita has been, we talked about him forever, really good quarterback. I feel like, though, the balanced attack of BYU is going to keep Arizona on their toes a bit more, and I like BYU's defense getting the stops because they did against guys like this, the Colorado game, West Virginia. The defense has come clutch when it had to be. So I'm going to take the Cougars winning. I think this is going to be close. I'm going to go a 28-21 win for BYU. Although I will say this is a game I would not be surprised again if Arizona pulls this one out, because Arizona's a really good team. It's in Arizona, and with the Big 12, you never know when they're going to throw a hand grenade in the standings.
Yeah, I mean, I'm leaning more towards Chase Roberts and Bear Brockmeyer here. And the team last year that BYU had, I think they won 10 games and they were on the verge of getting to the Big 12 championship game, and they kind of faltered there. So I feel like it's a very similar team to last year. I feel like Bachmeier is a better quarterback than Retzlaff was, and I feel like that's a more dynamic offense than they had last year, and they were good enough last year to win 10 games. I feel like this team is even better. I think they win this game. I don't see them losing this game because, I like Arizona. I like what they've done. I like Fafita. That game against Iowa State, whatever, it stands out because the rest of the games, they look better. I just think that BYU is a team on a mission this year. It's like one of those things where they have, guys that come back, and they have guys that stay 4 or 5 years at BYU. So they get a lot of senior laden teams, which, this team is, and there's a lot of experience, and these guys are, solid. And I just expect BYU to put up a ton of points. I don't know if Arizona's defense is going to be good enough to stop them. So I'm going to say a 34-24 game, and Arizona scores late to make it look closer than it actually is. Okay, moving on. Last game of the day. Oh, two. We got two more. Sorry. G5 game of the week as well. Can't forget that one. Arizona State and Utah, our last Power 4 game. Arizona State has snuck by a couple of these teams. They barely got by TCU 2 weeks ago. They barely got by Baylor. They only have that loss to Mississippi State, which they barely lost. They've played in a lot of one-score games. I just like Utah in this one because it's in Salt Lake City. The offense for Utah, they're going to run the ball a ton. I think they're going to put up a lot of points because of that. Their defense is good enough to to keep Arizona State in check a little bit. You know, I just think Utah is going to put up at least 35 points, and I don't think Arizona State's going to be able to score that many. So I'm going to say it's going to be like a 35 to like 27 game. What do you got?
I think it might be the other way around for me because with Utah, well, only on this one, because I think Utah is going to win, but I think it's going to be in a different way, that Utah is going to be able to exploit the passing defense of Arizona State because they're near the bottom in the Big 12 in passing defense. They're averaging giving up over almost 200 yards a game, but they're top 5 in rushing defense. And Utah has actually struggled against the run, which has kind of been Arizona State's backbone this season. But I like Utah in this one because the offense has actually been playing significantly better on average than Arizona State has so far this year. And Arizona State, no pun intended because of the Sun Devils, but they've been playing with fire since the start of the year. Obviously, you know, they lost to Mississippi State, but then they have 2 3-point wins against Baylor and TCU. I feel like this one on the road, Salt Lake City is an incredibly tough place to win unless you're Texas Tech. But I'm going to take the Utes winning. I'm going to go with let's do a 30-20 win for Utah.
All right, last game. We got the G5 game of the week. G5 Gibson, go ahead.
So, all intents and purposes, the G5 game of the week is North Texas USF. But since that's Friday, let's get a game on Saturday. So, for this one, and I know it's kind of a weird pick because of the record of Air Force, but it's UNLV and Air Force. Air Force still hasn't won a Mountain West game. They still technically haven't even beaten a Division I team. And UNLV is undefeated, obviously, Dan Mullen's first year. But if you look real deep in the lines, and we were talking about this last week with Navy, Air Force hasn't been getting blown out in these games.
No.
Now, they took like a 19-point loss to Utah State, but they were in it. Same thing with Boise State, same thing with Hawaii, and same thing with Navy. It's one of those things where the ball just doesn't bounce your way. And not to mention, Air Force actually has a better offense right now than UNLV right now in the standings.
Yeah.
The problem is Air Force has the worst defense in the Mountain West. So if you want an old school run up the scores, you know, light bulbs breaking on the scoreboard kind of game, this is going to be the one for you. I think it'll be a shootout, but I feel like Dan finds a way to wiggle out of this one, and Air Force just eventually they're going to win, but I don't think it's here. I don't, especially that it's in Vegas. I'm going to go with the Rebels winning. I'm going to go with a shootout, 45-35 Rebels.
Yeah, I mean, I watched that Air Force team last week, and like, I don't know, they definitely struggle on defense, and I think UNLV will be able to score a ton. You know, Dan Mullen is great at scheming up plays, and I feel like, you know, Air Force though should probably be able to score. Their offense moves the ball quite well. I don't think UNLV has that great of a defense. They kind of got allowed a lot of points in like the first couple of weeks. I know the first couple of games I saw like high totals they allowed. So I'm going to say Air Force wins this one. No, Utah wins it. God, man, I'm so off. Sorry. UNLV. Jeez.
There we go. Third time's a charm.
Got it. Yeah. Sorry about that. UNLV wins this one. I'm going to say like UNLV wins like probably 38 to like 31, and that maybe like Air Force has the ball late and like turns the ball over, and that's like the game. So I'm going with that. Okay, that's the show. You can reach us at haterradio.com for all of our articles and whatnot. You can reach us on all the social medias platforms. Just type in Hater Radio, comes right up. Ian, what are your socials before we go?
At Twitter, it's at G5Gibson, and on YouTube and Instagram, it's at G_Gator_G.
Yeah, so if you're going to any of these games, the USF North Texas game or the Texas Oklahoma game, look for Ian and George, right? You were going with George?
Yeah, Ian, George, and my uncle and cousin. I mean, for the USF game, I'm wearing this. So I mean,
so keep an eye out for Ian. He's out there with his cousin George and their family, and enjoy these games. It's again, a huge weekend. After this week, we are officially halfway through the regular season, so it's downhill from here. So it's been a great run so far. Enjoy these games, and we'll talk to you on Sunday. Take care, y'all.